3,000 meters deep beneath the ocean's surface, surrounded by a realm of absolute total darkness. The pressure here would crush your bones just like paper. A freezing cold that stops your heart in mere minutes. Something lethal is hunting in these depths. A sperm whale has just detected a subtle movement. His heart rate slows down significantly, dropping from 60 beats per minute to just 10. He has been holding his breath steadily for over 40 long minutes now, and then he finally fires. It is a sound loud enough to completely rupture your eardrums. Rapid, sharp clicks hammer through the heavy darkness like machine gun fire echoing underwater. Every single one of these clicks carries far more acoustic energy than a jet engine does at the very moment of takeoff. The whale scans, it maps, and it builds a detailed three-dimensional image of something truly massive moving through the dark, silent depths. The sonar echo is finally returning, something with arms that are longer than a city bus. Its suckers are ringed by rows of razor-sharp hooks. It is the largest invertebrate on the entire planet, a massive giant squid. For most animals, life happens in the light. Sperm whales live in a world that hardly any other living creature ever enters. A vertical universe stretching for miles beneath the surface, where pressure crushes metal and sunlight has never reached. What makes sperm whales so extraordinary is not just their massive size. It is how remarkably little we actually know about them. For an animal as big as a plane, they're practically invisible. They spend over 70% of their lives in a zone humans can't reach, in a place so deep that even our submarines can barely survive for minutes. We study lions, tigers, sharks because we can see them. What of the sperm whales? We only study their shadows, their echoes, and the scars they leave behind. They are the closest thing our planet has to living sea monsters. Not just because they're terrifying, but because they remain so unknown to us. Even their most basic daily habits remain a total mystery. We still don't know how they decide when to dive, how long they sleep, or how they navigate across oceans as vast as entire continents. Sometimes, scientists observe entire groups drifting vertically deep in the water. They remain motionless, like gray floating pillars, sleeping perfectly upright. Nobody knows the reason why. They just drift there, heads just below the surface, perfectly still, as if someone hit the pause button. Researchers call this behavior logging. This behavior takes up roughly 7% of their daily routine. But why do they stay upright? Why not rest horizontally like other species of whales? We have absolutely no idea. Then there is the fascinating way they communicate. Sperm whales communicate using rhythmic click sequences known as codas. These patterns are so complex that many researchers believe they could form distinct regional dialects, potentially representing the very beginnings of a sophisticated language. Just imagine a creature with a brain 6 times larger than our own, inhabiting a vast world we have never seen, speaking in a complex code we do not understand. Every now and then, the deep grants us a fleeting rare glimpse. Divers have encountered these massive sperm whales in moments that seem almost entirely unbelievable. You are floating in the vast open water, feeling weightless and vulnerable. Then, something truly massive begins to move through the deep blue toward you. The rhythmic clicks begin, sounding much softer than you had expected, slow and very deliberate. The whale scans you from deep within your own body, your lungs, your ribs, and your steady heartbeat. It creates a full 3-dimensional image of exactly what you are. Sperm whales can see right through you using their echolocation. They know if you are pregnant, if your heart is beating in an irregular way, or if you have any kind of implants. Then it just floats there and watches you. Sometimes they will tilt their bodies to the side to read the echoes much better. Sometimes they circle in slow, deliberate motions, clicking in patterns that sound like a structured conversation. And in those rare moments, moments that leave humans trembling, they answer back. These are never mere accidents. These are encounters, because here's the thing that pulls the rug out from under you. These animals possess the same neural structures associated with empathy and language in humans, spindle neurons. For a long time, they were thought to be exclusively human. Then we found them in great apes, then elephants, then whales. But sperm whales have had them for 15 million years longer than we have. They possess 3 times as many neurons as we do, located within brain regions that are twice as large as our own. It is possible they speak one of the most incredibly sophisticated languages found on Earth, and despite everything we have done to them throughout history, centuries of brutal slaughter and near-total extinction, whenever we enter their world completely defenseless, they do not flee, they do not attack. Instead, they turn their attention toward us. They genuinely try to understand us. Giants with the absolute power to kill, yet they choose to communicate. And yet, we have driven them to the very brink of total annihilation. And yet, they have allowed us to draw close enough to realize that we are standing in the presence of an intelligence that we have only just begun to truly comprehend. For centuries, humans only knew sperm whales from the surface, and everything felt wrong. 18th century sailors called them sea devils, leviathans. Some people truly believed they were the kraken itself. When a 50-foot head emerges from the dense grey fog, blasting a cloud of steam that reeks of death, you don't think of a mammal. You think of a nightmare, and the sounds they made didn't make it any better. Ships heard loud, rhythmic knocking from deep below, as if something massive were hammering against the hull. Crews often thought they were being followed. Some even believed in ghosts. In truth, it was sperm whales talking to one another. Their clicks were so incredibly loud that they vibrated through the wooden hulls. Sailors without any context just heard a rhythmic bump, bump, bump echoing from the depths for hours. And then, finally, the scars. Back when whalers hunted these massive creatures in staggering numbers, they often found strange circular marks on their thick skin, some nearly a foot wide, surrounded by smaller jagged cuts. They were sucker scars. Some of the whales were covered in them, dozens of them, hundreds even. What in the hell had these creatures been fighting? The answer came to us in pieces. Carcasses of giant squid have washed up bearing deep bite marks, with tentacle fragments found in whale stomachs and beak parts as large as human fists. These whales were hunting down legendary monsters that scientists had long dismissed as mere tall tales: the colossal squid and the giant squid. Animals with eyes as big as basketballs and arms that can reach 13 meters. But here's the kicker: the whales always win. Every single scar is proof of a victory. Sperm whales devour hundreds of squid daily, the largest predators of the deep sea, and sperm whales treat them like snacks. In 1820, the whale ship Essex was rammed by a sperm whale. Not by accident, it was done on purpose. Twice, the whale tore a hole in the hull and sent the ship to the bottom. The crew drifted in their small lifeboats for many long months. In their desperation, some even turned to cannibalism. The survivors described a whale that seemed deliberately angry and almost vengeful. Herman Melville eventually heard these harrowing stories. 30 years later, he wrote the novel Moby Dick. The legendary white whale was never merely an invention, it was simply fear given a name. Melville described Moby Dick as truly malicious, not just wild, but deeply malicious. The underlying message was perfectly clear. This whale could think, it could plan, and it could remember. And that is the real point of it all. He was probably right. In the 18th century, sperm whales became the most valuable animals on Earth. Inside that massive head was oil, spermaceti oil. It didn't smoke when burned. It didn't freeze in winter. It lubricated heavy machinery far more effectively than anything else could. It allowed oil lamps to burn with a much clearer, brighter, and steadier light. Spermaceti oil fueled the Industrial Revolution. It lit up our cities and kept the factories running. It was essentially liquid gold. A single large bull could yield 2,000 liters, a massive fortune in those days. It is enough to pay an entire crew for a full year, and so the hunt began. Whaling ships traveled for months, sometimes even years, across the vast oceans. Small boats were rowed toward creatures as massive as city buses. Harpoons were driven deep into living flesh. The whales writhed in pure, unadulterated agony. The vast ocean turned a deep, sickening shade of red. Deep, mournful cries carried for many miles through the water. Panic signals, distress calls. Other whales heard them, and they learned. Sperm whale groups began to flee from ships. Mothers placed themselves between boats and calves. Some fought back, smashing boats with their flukes, tossing men into the water. There are documented cases of sperm whales attacking whaling boats, but they couldn't win against harpoons, not in the long run. The brutality was systematic. Whales were butchered while still alive, their flesh was sliced away while they were still drawing breath, and the oil was boiled out of their massive skulls. The industry did not treat these creatures like living beings. Instead, it treated them like nothing more than floating warehouses of raw materials. By the middle of the 19th century, whaling fleets were scouring every ocean. Entire populations have now completely collapsed. Areas that once hosted hundreds of animals saw their numbers drop down to mere single digits. Sperm whales, unfortunately, recover at a very slow, steady pace. Females don't mature sexually until age 9. Pregnancies last for 15 full months, which is significantly longer than in humans. They produce just one single calf every 5 to 7 years. You cannot sustain a population when you are killing thousands of them annually. By the early 20th century, sperm whale stocks had completely collapsed. Over 1 million were killed, and perhaps even more than that. Entire regional populations wiped out, the North Atlantic, once full of life, nearly empty. The South Pacific was ruthlessly plundered by man. In 1986, the global moratorium on commercial whaling finally took effect. It was far too late for many species, yet just in time for a few others. Since then, whale stocks have been slowly recovering. Not quite what they once were, far from it, but enough that they are no longer on the immediate brink of total collapse. Current estimates place the population at around 350,000 to 450,000 individuals worldwide. That sounds like a lot, until you consider there were once millions of them. They survived by the skin of their teeth. To truly understand the nature of sperm whales, you must journey back into the dark, mysterious deep. At a depth of 3,000 meters, the pressure is 300 times greater than what we experience at the surface. It is enough to crush a car like a tin can or cause a sturdy submarine to implode. Sperm whales perform this feat dozens of times every day, holding their breath for over an hour, then swimming back up, completely relaxed, as if it were nothing. Every part of their body is a specialized answer to a problem that would kill any other creature. Their head, that massive 30-foot battering ram, is a powerful biological sonar cannon. Inside is the spermaceti organ, filled with up to a ton of waxy oil. It focuses sound like an acoustic lens and fires it forward as a concentrated beam. The result? Clicks at 230 decibels. A jet engine at full thrust reaches 140 decibels. The difference sounds small, but it isn't. The decibel scale is logarithmic. 230 decibels isn't 1.5 times louder, it's millions of times more intense. Divers report feeling the clicks like a physical punch through the chest. Some claim their teeth vibrated and their very bones hummed. Their social structures are quite complex and intricate. The females stay together for the duration of their lives. Sisters, daughters, nieces, bonds across generations. They babysit each other's calves, share knowledge about hunting grounds, migration routes, dangers. Older females, grandmothers, pass their knowledge to younger ones. That's not a metaphor, it's documented. And with every single dive they take, they change the ocean. Sperm whales actually fertilize the sea. They feed down in the deep, then they defecate at the surface. They bring vital nutrients like iron and nitrogen from the deep sea zones up to where the plankton lives. Plankton is the foundation of the marine food chain and produces half of Earth's oxygen. A single whale stimulates as much carbon absorption as thousands of mature trees. Even a small pod can have a profound influence on global climate cycles. They do not simply survive in the ocean, they help to maintain it. Without whales, the seas would be far poorer, emptier, and less vibrant. Even in death, their vital work continues. A sunken whale carcass, researchers call it a whale fall, creates a city in the darkness. Hagfish, crabs, bacteria, worms, entire ecosystems emerge around the carcass. A single whale can feed a deep-sea ecosystem for 100 years. Some species exist exclusively on such whale falls. They wait in the darkness for decades, centuries, until the next animal sinks.